Today, let's understand what are the different digital tools available for doing sketching, wireframing, and prototyping. The first set of tools, which is very popular, is Balsamiq. Balsamiq allows you to create wireframes. You can also create interactive interfaces that look similar to hand sketched ones. So there are multiple settings that you can use. It's very easy to add interactions also if you want to. It's available for Windows and Mac, and I would recommend that if you really want to have a digital version of a sketch, that is, instead of you're not very good with sketching by your own hand, then you can use Balsamiq to create your initial wireframes. And there's a Balsamiq tutorial that is embedded on this slide. I will suggest that you go through it. The next tool that I'll suggest is Pop. So if you have created your wireframes on a piece of paper, what you can simply do with Pop, which got bought over by Marvel, uh, what you can simply do is just take snaps of all these pictures, this images, and then you can create hot spots on these pictures, and then you can make a very quick interactive prototype. So imagine how fast this is. Just have to create uh, sketches on a piece of paper, snap the pictures, connect the interfaces, and you're done. It's a very good and very fast way to get a prototype ready, which you can showcase to your stakeholders, to potential customers, and get some initial feedback. Then comes InVision, which is pretty much now an industry standard. So once you have UI screens or some decent um, so what Pop does, you can do that on InVision also, but InVision works even better if you have UI screens, full legit UI screens, and you can embed them on InVision, and then you can create the connections between the different touch points, between the different buttons and entry areas and so on, so that the end user will get a very high fidelity prototyping experience. Again, the tutorial, a brief tutorial is embedded on this slide. I'll suggest have a look. And finally, you have Zeplin. Why do you need Zeplin? Zeplin does a fantastic job at uh, once you have created designs on Sketch or PSD or whatever. Sketch is another tool similar to Photoshop, except Sketch is designed from grounds up for web design. Photoshop was designed for graphic design. It was not designed for web, and web slowly get added into Photoshop. Also, Photoshop is a raster based product. It's a raster based designing tool. I cannot go too much deep into what is rasterization and what is vector based, but effectively, um, there is Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, which is vector based design tool. Vector based, that is, all the shapes and all the designs that are created in Illustrator are because of some mathematically produced functions, mathematically produced curves. So when you design a curve in Illustrator, essentially it is a mathematical formula behind it which designs that curve. Okay, so that is vector. What are the benefits of vector? It scales up and scales down without any pixelation, in a very simple term, and that's why in a web it becomes much more easier to actually work with. As against that, Photoshop by default is a raster based design. So if you have designed something at 100 by 100 pixels, then if you scale that with 1000 by 1000 pixels, it will look very bad, because it would be completely pixelated. Sketch is a completely new tool which was designed as a vector based tool specially for web design, and it has taken over. It has become industry standard now. So Sketch, InVision, and Zeppelin are pretty much the industry standards in terms of design, and I would suggest that you definitely should have a good grasp of these three tools. uh, Zeppelin does does so in Sketch you will design the essentially you will sit down and design the entire interface. Typically, product manager would not be doing that. A dedicated designer would be doing it. Uh, the output of Sketch would be UI screens. This UI screens will then be uploaded to InVision, and then in InVision, the designer and product manager would typically link all the screens and create the interfaces or create the user journeys that they were expecting. And then once all of this has been tested, so in InVision you have created a interactive prototype, and you took it to the stakeholders, you got some feedback, and you're convinced that okay, this is the right way to go forward, then you'll pass this InVision screens, or rather sketch screens, to Zeplin. And in Zeplin, the designers or the developers get exact specifications that how big the image should be, how big the text should be, how big the what should be the gap, what should be the gap between the different elements. So it becomes pixel perfect then. Otherwise, they have to do all the slicing. The developers have to do all the slicing. They have to do all the measurement, which eats up into the eats up in the entire time. As against that, Zeppelin will automatically figure out the colors of the buttons, will figure out the spacing and tell the developer exact spacing, that okay, this is the button is 34 pixel from the right. So just so the developer just have to code that in CSS. So effectively, if I just give you the entire picture in one single shot, uh, for wireframing you have Balsamiq. For interactive mockup, you can use Pop. You can also use InVision, but Pop is much more suitable. For interactive prototype, you can use InVision or Marvel. Marvel is also pretty good. And then finally, to collaborate between designers and developers, you'll use Zeppelin. Okay. So there are plenty of design tools that are available. These are the best ones, so these are pretty much the industry standards that I'm recommending. But feel free to experiment. There are plenty of new tools that keep coming up. If you run into any new problems, I'll suggest just look around. I'm sure you'll find some new tool available. That's it for now. Thank you.